एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय चैनल। आज हम करेंगे यूनिट 47। इसका इंटरप्रिटेशन पार्ट हम करेंगे। ये लाइंस जो है 322 से लेके 330 तक हैं। लेट अस स्टार्ट नाउ। This passage recalls the chain of events from the betrayal and arrest of Jesus Christ after the nights of agony and prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane up to the time of his crucifixion. Judas, Judas, along with the group of soldiers and men from the Jewish priests, came to the garden with lantern, torches, and weapons. Christ was arrested and taken to the palace of the high priest, where he was openly questioned before being taken to the hall of judgment, where Pilate, the Roman governor of Palestine, was waiting him. On the day of Christ's crucifixion, there was a terrible earthquake. His death meant kind a kind of universal death for all. Patience of line 30 is the key word in this passage, since it signifies the suffering of the living humanity after Christ was no more. It also denotes the agony of Jesus Christ, the Savior of mankind. Now we are coming on line 331 to 358. Okay, just wait. Eliot thought these 28 lines of the water dripping song to be the only good lines in the wasteland, and hence immortal compared to the transitoriness of the rest of the poem. He believed that the less realistic literature was, the more visual it must be. In order to be seen, dreams must be real, or at least seem to be so. In this passage, clear visual images and sounds that artistically convey the sense of the words create hypnotizing recitative rhythms to achieve an unusual effect. The evocative suggestion is one of an arid and waterless rocky region, a visual wasteland or desert where there is no hope of regeneration and life. This forsaken land would be transformed if only there were some water somewhere. The repetition of certain keywords like rock and water only heighten the general atmosphere of dryness and sterility. There is no water in this land, only rocks and a winding sandy road which goes up among the dry and bare mountains. If only there were water, the travelers on the road would gladly stop to drink, but for want of that, they can neither stop to rest nor think of what to do. The heat of the sand underfoot dries their sweat. The rock is like the cavity filled mouth of the mountain that doesn't spit or yield any water. There is no place to rest and refresh oneself. The dry mountains are not silent but echoing with the sound of rainless thunder. There is not even the solace of solitude. Comfort नहीं है, since the ominous faces of the dwellers of this wasteland glare at the pedestrian travelers from the doors of cracked mud houses. So, what the narrator of the poem repeatedly asks for is only some water without rock, and if that were not possible, let it be rock with a little water. He desperately craves for a spring, a pool among the rocks. What he asks for is the sound of water only, not that of dry grass or the cicada. Above all sounds, he cares for the sound of water flowing over a rock, sounded by the pine trees and the songs of hermit thrush. But unfortunately, his eager ears do not hear the drip, drop sound of water. Now we are on line 359 to 65. Here we have a change of scene. We have to imagine ourselves watching the progress of the two followers of Christ on the road to Emmaus near Jerusalem. One asked the other about the shadowy presence of a third person dressed in a hooded brown cloak. Cloak means कपड़ा होता है एक जिसकी बाजू नहीं होती है, जैसे गाउन टाइप विदाउट एनी विदाउट स्लीव्स. ओके, ना फिर से पढ़ती हूँ. वन आस्क्ड द अदर about the shadowy presence of a third person dressed in a hooded brown cloak, silently walking by their side. He is not sure if it is a man or woman, but who could it be? Obviously, the cloaked figure is that of Christ risen from the grave. Now we are coming on line 366 to 76. Okay. Now, Eliot, in his note, refers to the 1920 text of Blicken's Chaos by the German writer Hermann Hesse. He quotes a Shanti is the formal ending to an Upanishad. Eliot's use of the Sanskrit word implies that he had to take beyond the European tradition to find a word of adequate depth and resonance. नाउ वी आर कमिंग ऑन क्रिटिकल कमेंट्स. हम लाइन 326 लेंगे इसमें, जिसका क्रिटिकल कमेंट करेंगे. 326 है ना. फ्रांसिस बेकन, द फर्स्ट इंग्लिश एसेइस्ट, बिगिंस हिज एसे ऑफ ट्रूथ विद दिस लाइन. व्हाट इज ट्रूथ? आस्क्ड jesting Pilate, and would not stay for an answer. When interrogated by Pilate, Christ is reported to have told him that whatever he preached was only truth. Pilate made the remarks quoted above and ceremoniously washed his hands of the whole affair. He asked, मतलब उन्होंने अपने हाथ धो लिए उस चीज़ से, मतलब उस चीज़ में उन्होंने ज़्यादा इंटरफेयर नहीं किया. He walked out of the hall of judgment after handing Christ over to the Jewish high priest, who condemned him to death by crucifixion under the Jewish law. Incidentally, Jesting Pilate is the title of a book by Aldous Huxley, a popular British writer of the 20th century. I'm so sorry. लाइन 353 अब हम करेंगे. लाइन 53 का क्रिटिकल कमेंट करेंगे. Cicadas, the cicadas, CICADAS, frequent the willow groves of Kashmir, where their shrill, high-pitched noise, ये पक्षी का नाम है, in chorus, could be heard throughout the day in summer and autumn. They are also found in other Asian countries like Japan. अब हम करेंगे लाइन 366 to 70. इसका 66 to 70 हमने मतलब कर ली है. इसका क्रिटिकल कमेंट हम कर रहे हैं. ओके, क्रिटिकल कमेंट है लाइन 366 to 70. Hermann Hesse is also the author of a novel called Siddhartha, based on the Indian theme of how and when Buddhism as a faith started in India. A picture was made in English on this novel with Shashi Kapoor and Simi Grewal in the lead role. फिर उसमें ये पार्ट बताया है इसका. Nasiruddin was a Muslim descendant of the Mongols of Central Asia. He established the rule of Mughal dynasty in मतलब बाबर जो है ना, dynasty in Delhi, which lasted for nearly 250 years. Kubla Khan of S.T. Coleridge's poem Kubla Khan was a Mongol king in a part of China which is now known as Mongolia. अब लाइन 395 तो हमने अभी की नहीं है, लेकिन पता नहीं क्यों इसमें क्रिटिकल कमेंट है, मैं चेक करूँगी. Eliot uses a Sanskrit name for the river commonly known in India but not the anglicized term the Ganges. Okay, now Himavat again is the Sanskrit name of the high snow-covered Himalayan mountain range. The literal meaning of the word is snowbound. Sorry. अभी ना हम थोड़ा सा लाइन का बुक में तो बहुत कन्फ्यूज़न है, लेकिन हमने 366 to 370 लाइन तो हमने कर ली है. तो इसमें बुक में तो बहुत ज़्यादा कन्फ्यूज़न है, लेकिन हमने 366 से लेके 370 तक कर लिया है. उसके बाद हम अब कर रहे हैं 371 से लेके 384 तक. हिमावती ये स्टार्ट हो रहा है यहाँ से. Eliot uses the Sanskrit name for the river commonly known in India, but not the anglicized term, the Ganges. Himavat again is the Sanskrit name of the high snow covered Himalayan mountain range. The literal meaning of the word is snowbound. A girl played upon with a bow, like the string of a violin. The tolling bell are the church bells of London and of the filling tower of other capital cities of the countries of three continents surrounding the Mediterranean Sea on three sides. There is also a reference to the Browning's poem, "Child Roland to the Dark Tower Came." In his Clark lectures of 1926 जो एलियट ने दिए थे, एलियट praises this poem for achieving the state of a double world, whereby the character's words and deeds seem to belong to another plane of reality from which he is in exile. The background of what the thunder said resembles the dream-like world of Browning's poem, the narrative of which too is in the form of a quest. In the Old Testament, the empty cistern or the water tank and wells signified the loss of faith and the worship of false gods. अब हम करेंगे line 385 to 394. Suddenly, we are confronted with a scene that is a contrast to the earlier desert-like desolation. There is an empty place of worship without doors and windows. The wind comes and goes through it as it likes. But in this deserted small gap in the mountains, the grass is singing over a graveyard in the faint moonlight. The dry bones of the graves can cause no harm. A cock stands on the roof tree of the chapel, sorry, crowing Ko in the flash of lightning. Soon after, a damp gust of wind brings welcome rain. The cock is connected with the betrayal of Christ. After his arrest by the soldiers of Pilate, the Roman governor of Philistine, one of his first disciples, Peter, thrice denies that he knows him. The cock crows after the third denial. Peter then remembers what his master had previously said to him. Before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice. The crowing of the cock in Eliot's poem marks the moment of Peter's recognition of his betrayal of Christ. The cock, however, is a bird of good omen, since it announces the morning when the evil spirits and ghosts that walk the earth by night are dispersed. Eliot's reproduction of the cock's crowing is the French equivalent of the English cock a doodle doo, which follows this passage is an echo of the message of the Bhagavad Gita and the Hindu Upanishads. Now we are coming on line 395 to 409. Okay, now the poet suddenly has thoughts of river Ganga and its land, India. In the heat of the summer, while the river was almost dry and the lifeless leaves of the trees on the banks awaited the rain, the dark clouds gathered over the Himalayas and the forests waited in silence. At that time, the thunder, in terms of the message of the Brihadara Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 5, the threefold offspring of Brahma, the creator in Hindu mythology, for example, man, ghost, demon, approach him after three है ना ये man, god and demons approach him after finishing their formal education. To each group he says only one syllable, da, da लिखा है इन्होंने, and they interpret it according to their separate ways of thinking. The men interpret it as data, which means to give. The demons interpret it as dayadhavam, which means to be compassionate, means sympathize करना. The gods interpret it as damyata, which means control oneself. When the three groups express what they understand by DA, Brahma responds, matlab the Brahma responds with Om, which signifies that they have understood him. The thunder in heaven repeats that very message, da da da. For example, give to the needy, बी कंपैशनेट मतलब दान करना, सिंपैथी रखना, एंड एक्सरसाइज सेल्फ कंट्रोल रखना, है ना. वन शुड प्रैक्टिस दिस very थ्री फोल्ड advice, and that is how Dr. S. Radhakrishnan interprets the fable in the principal Upanishads. उन्होंने इंटरप्रेट किया था इसको, है ना. द फेबल concludes by asking men to practice all the three commands because there was no gods or demons other than men. Eliot adopts this very interpretation and lends it to his own meaning. Hence, the poet asks, what have we given? Sometimes, like Peter, with a palpitating heart, we surrender to the momentary weakness, which the wisdom of experience cannot reverse. Our acts of giving might not be recorded in the obituaries, memorials, or wills, the seals of which shall be broken by the lawyer after our death. But by those very acts of charity have we lived, and shall be remembered by the posterity. Now we are coming on line 410 to 22. आई थिंक हमें इस वीडियो को यहीं फिनिश कर लेना चाहिए. नेक्स्ट वीडियो में, जो कि पार्ट 5 होगा, हम लोग 410 से स्टार्ट करेंगे इसको. ओके, थैंक यू सो मच. प्लीज़ सब्सक्राइब माई चैनल एंड share my videos. Thank you.